Nonprofit Exchange. I'm your host, C. Richard Gilcrease, and today we have an outstanding show. And I have to warn everybody listening to this show today or watching it, you need to get a pencil and piece of paper because we have a CPA who's going to be talking about nonprofits as relates to your accounting processes and your taxes. And welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, Miss Lily Binglow.
Yes.
Binglow, Miss Binglow. So glad to have you, Miss Binglow, and we are looking forward to your conversation today. So if you don't hear me saying a whole lot today, it's because Miss Binglow has some very important information for you all who are involved in nonprofits and who are thinking that nonprofits are not businesses. Nonprofits are a business.
Yes.
Ms. Binglow, welcome to the organization.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rich. I'm so honored to be here.
So tell us about your firm, first of all. You're a CPA.
Yes.
And what type of CPA are you?
So I'm a CPA license here in the state of Virginia, and I own an organization called the ARC Nonprofit Solutions. And what we do is we empower nonprofits with financial strategies, with growth strategies, sustainability strategies, and just giving them that information so that they can effectively and efficiently run their nonprofits. They can operate on a day-to-day basis. They can take advantage of opportunities that present themselves because they have a better understanding of where they are and where they're going to.
So when did ARC get started?
The ARC has been something in my heart. I would say I had been doing everything that the ARC is doing, except the ARC actually got registered just last month or this month here in Virginia. But I've been working with different nonprofits doing same work, empowering them with financial knowledge, clarity, helping them plan better, budget better, forecast better, help board of directors understand financial statements. I've been doing all that. It just wasn't under the ARC yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that you have it under the ARC,
Yes.
you're now a nonprofit organization helping other nonprofit organizations.
Well, I am actually an organization helping nonprofit. I'm not a nonprofit because I operate as an organization, as a company, as a legal any company.
All right.
But my focus is nonprofits and churches. Yes.
Okay, so now we got that straight because young people and people who are out there trying to deal with a nonprofit organization need to know that there's people out there willing to help and specialize in nonprofit organizations.
Oh, yes.
So now you brought a lot of information for us today, so we're going to get right to it because I don't want us to run out of time.
Yes.
So let's start with number one up there.
Okay, so my hope is by the end of today, everyone who's listening will understand what the new tax law changes are, how it's going to impact their nonprofit, and what they can do to survive.
Okay.
And I group every nonprofit's operations into the dollars, their donors, and the doers. So when we understand
Let's do that slower.
Yes.
The dollars,
the donors, and the doers.
All right.
That's what makes up a nonprofit, really, if you think about it. So we'll be talking about how we can strategically manage these different categories so we are not met with any surprises as a result of the tax changes.
Great. Let's move to the first one.
Yes. So the very first thing we'll talk about are the new laws. In the tax change or the tax law is called Tax Cuts and Job Act, which is quite an interesting name, and it became effective earlier this year in January of 2018. And so just a few changes that happened on the individual level. A lot of tax rates were reduced. The top tax rate, which was 39% before, was brought down to 37%. Another change that is going to impact a lot of people is the increased standard deduction. And this is as a result of no more personal exemptions. Before, we used to have the personal exemption of $4,000, so we don't have that anymore. Now the standard deduction has been doubled. So for single people, before the standard deduction was $6,350, now it's $12,000. And for married people, it used to be $12,700, and now it's $24,000. So a lot of people, are always saying, but how does this impact nonprofits? It impacts them in the sense that not many people are going to be able to itemize as they did before because the standard deduction is so much higher. And to itemize now, you can still itemize, but you can only itemize things like your mortgage interest on your first home. You can itemize your your state taxes that you pay, but it's capped at 10,000. And you can still itemize your charitable donations. However, a lot of people will not be able to go beyond that threshold of the standard deduction. So more people will hardly be able to to itemize going forward. That's another change. And then, of course, we no longer have the 2% miscellaneous itemized deductions like tax preparation that people used to take advantage of, job changes, all those expenses for moving. We don't have that anymore. So, that again is another reason people will probably not be itemizing. And then, charitable contribution actually still continues being deducted. So, you can still deduct that. And there's an advantage now for people that used to give over 50% of their adjusted gross income. They can actually deduct up to 60% now. So before it was capped at 50%. That's the maximum tax advantage you could get, but now it's gone up to 60%. So when we look at it from that end, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing for those who are always willing to give above and beyond. So there are also limits on certain things like the state and local tax deduction, and I think we'll just leave that right there and just talk about how this is going to impact nonprofits. So this is going to impact nonprofit organizations because it's believed that a lot of people who gave to nonprofit organizations because of the tax benefits will probably not be given as much because they don't have those benefits anymore. I don't know where you stand on that, Mr. Richards, but I'm on the fence.
Okay. And why are you on the fence?
I'm on the fence because for now, I don't want to be a doomsday prophet. So I have hope in the good of humanity.
Okay.
I believe that people give for more reasons than just tax deductions.
Okay.
Yes. However, there's what we know, which is the tax law changes, and then there's what we can anticipate. So we have to take precaution or take the necessary steps to prepare ourselves for those changes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now if we go on to the next one about the cash flow planning,
Yes.
what does that look like for a nonprofit now?
Yeah. So you remember I said there were three categories that made
Right.
up a nonprofit, which was the dollars,
Right.
the donors, and the doers. And I would explain this.
Okay.
So the dollars is really what you run on. You can have a great mission, you can have a great idea to impact the community, but if you do not have the funds to do that, you're limited. The donors, very important because charities are based, the 501c charities are based on the fact that people are going to be able to give their contribution to support their mission.
Right.
So you need donors in order to be able to carry out the activities that you want to carry out to benefit the community. And then, of course, you need the doers because if you have the funds and you have the people who have the need, you also need people who can support you in executing this. And that's
Right.
where the doers come in.
Okay.
So today now I'm just offering tips on how you can manage these three different categories.
Okay.
So even if you were to be impacted by people not giving as much, you're still able to thrive from this year going forward. So I'll start with the dollar,
Right.
Which
Yes.
is also under the donations part.
Right.
My first thing and very important is you have to go lean. You have to go lean. We have to cut unnecessary costs. Like, those big end of year Christmas parties, you may want to consider saying, okay, you know what, let's scale back on this and save up some of that net asset towards unexpected circumstances that may come up next year, because the impact has not yet been felt as of now. A lot of people are going to figure this out next year when they go to file taxes.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, you cannot deduct your charitable contribution, so that could prevent people from wanting to give more. So if that were to happen, however, if you've been cutting costs, you don't have much to worry.
Okay.
Because you're lean now. Another thing that I advocate for so powerfully is the budgeting. There are different types of budgets, and which we can go into that another day. But for today, most of what we advocate for is the zero budgeting method. And the zero budgeting method is just saying, plan as if you have nothing, right?
Okay.
So you can start accumulating information and data from then. So you plan to scale back. You plan to raise funds, but you're keeping in mind, hey, if we didn't meet our quarter, we're not worried about what was carried on from last year. We're just going to focus on this year. If we don't meet our quota, how can we operate within what we're able to raise? So zero budgeting is like, okay, we're starting from scratch. Nothing has been carried from previous year. We have nothing. We're starting from zero. So that's what we're advocating for, for nonprofits to really do going forward. And then also cash flow planning. Cash is what a lot of nonprofits run out of.
Yes.
A lot of times. And it makes it hard because you have people that are dependent on them for bill pay. You have vendors that supply things and then they don't get paid. And it becomes a whole deal when, cash doesn't come in and then you're stuck. But if we're able to come up with good cash flow plans that can last 6 months or even up to a year, where you look at the cash that you have and you say, okay, you know what? If I have nothing else coming in, how am I going to plan this for the rest of the year? Once you can allocate that for every month, irrespective of what is coming in, then you're not met with any surprises in case you didn't get a grant or you didn't get, the amount of contributions you were hoping to get. And then, of course, I also encourage nonprofits to seek out non-cash donations. That's something that we take for granted sometimes. If you're a nonprofit who supports, kids who need maybe more tutoring and they cannot afford it, for example, well, instead of asking donors to give you the funds to buy the supplies, maybe talk to certain stores about providing supplies, donating supplies to your organization, so that you're not too concerned in case you don't have enough cash coming in to cover some of those expenses. And the big one now is partnerships.
Right.
Partnerships. If you're going out there to feed the hungry and there's an organization that can feed, that is also doing the similar thing, partner with them. So you're able to cut costs and you're still able to get the results that you set out to get. And that's so important. Partnerships is so important right now. So the next category that we're going to address is the donors.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to talk about the donors. And the big question is always, who are our donors?
Oh,
We're moving to a year now where we are not sure if our donors are going to be consistent in giving, because they might not be getting the incentives that they were getting before. Right? I mean, have you heard a lot of people saying, I don't know how this is going to look like for me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard that,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And now, you have all those questions. The first thing I'm encouraging nonprofits to do is start understanding who your donors are. If you have to invest in some analytics, do that. I think we don't take advantage of technology, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Sometimes you could actually reach out to the public and say, hey, we're looking for volunteers that are great with analytics. Let them break it down. There are different categories of donors, and I just put a few here. There are those annual donors, one-time donors, right? One-time donors.
All right.
There is the mission-driven donor who doesn't care what's going on. They're going to give because they love what you're doing.
Okay.
There's a spare of the moment donor. Those people that go to an event and they didn't want to give, but somebody just said something and it spoke to their heart and they gave.
Okay.
You have the non-cash donors who want to give assets, who want to give computers, who want to give, who are like, I'm not going to give them my money, but I can provide these things.
Right.
Then you have the donors that I call them the what's in it for me donors.
Okay.
Those are the people that need to know what they're going to benefit. Right?
Yes.
That's where the tax incentive comes in.
Okay.
The people are like, oh, if I'm getting a tax break, I can give. If I'm getting a t-shirt, I could give. If I'm going to get my name on a billboard, I can give, right?
Yes.
And finally, you have your super givers, those people that just believe in your cause and they keep giving large sums continuously to support you. So why it's important to understand who your donors are is because you can strategically communicate with these different groups. Because if you were to just put out an ad to everybody, college students saying you need $5,000, of course college students are not going to give you $5,000, right? But if you needed volunteers, you can communicate with college students, and you would have some. So now, once you understand who your donors are, you can tactfully communicate with them and get the best results. Maybe to your one-time donors, let them know how much you appreciate them and what their gift did to the work that you're doing. To your super givers, continue assuring them and giving them results and testimonials and making them know that, hey, we're achieving great impact and great results together. Your non-cash givers, look at all the areas where you have need and then you communicate. Right? If maybe we want computers this time, that's what you want to tell them. So you don't want to go and give one kind of communication to everybody. When you understand who your donors are, now you can talk to each person based on what they can give to you. And then the next thing is you have to focus on building relationships with these donors. A lot of people sometimes, especially when they have like major events, they send the thank yous and it ends there. They are like prospective donors that may not give anything, but they are watching, right? So you want to make sure that there's a relationship that is ongoing. People like super donors don't happen overnight. They take time. They see what you're doing. They want to know that, hey, if I were to put in my funds into this, these people would actually do what they say they're out to do. So
you're listening to the Nonprofit Exchange,
yes.
and I'm not interrupting at all because
yes.
you have the person who is an expert in this field,
yes.
who's been trying to help us understand what we need to do as nonprofits to work on, and this whole idea of working with your donors. We probably should be counting how many donors are in each category
yes.
too.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you start from there. Go back
yes.
to the other donors. After the donors, what's the next one?
Yes. Okay. So I like what you said, knowing how many people are in each donor category.
Right.
Because sometimes we have no idea who is giving us a one-time gift and who is giving us continuous gift. You need to know who these people are so you can capitalize. And for someone who is giving a one-time gift, you don't want them to give you a gift today and tomorrow you say we need more money. Mm-hmm. Now you have a problem.
Right.
Because they'll feel like, I just gave, right? So it's important to know who are in these categories so that you can strategically communicate to them and ask them for more funding.
That's excellent, yes. And I would suggest that if you don't have the time as the person giving the service, that's where your board of directors comes in.
Yes.
That's when you start asking for
yes.
volunteers.
Yes.
Instead of those volunteers being directly yes. involved with your clients or the service, they're helping you with the management of your fundraising campaign.
That's true.
So
that's
move
true.
on from there.
And we're going to move on. Well, just two things to
okay.
three, I would say. I think with fewer sources of funding, that's based on the assumption that people might not give as much. It's so important for nonprofits to consider diversifying. So if you're someone who was heavy on public giving, well, how about considering grants, right? Talking to these foundations, looking at when they make they are ready to give out some funds and invest in grant writers. Get people that can tactfully apply for these grants for you. So you really want to think diversify, and then social media as well. From the last time we attended an event where Miss Jasmine was on, and she really talked about the social media aspect of it. It's so important. There are those donors that you'll probably not meet in person, and you're just a click away from a post away from connecting with them. So it's something that nonprofits should really consider investing in. Invest in grant writers, invest in social media, but the end goal is to diversify your sources. So in case this is reducing, you're having more sources of funding to keep you running and keep you going and enable you to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves. And I think the top and the most important thing that when it comes to the aspect of donors is staying true to your mission. See, donors come to you because they believe in what you're doing. Irrespective of what they stand to benefit, it's because your cause spoke to their hearts. And so you need to stay true to that. Don't be the person that starts doing this and you see an opportunity that looks lucrative and you turn around and say, okay, I think it's okay to grow. It's okay to change the course of things, but stay true to the mission of wanting to do good for the greater community. So I think once you can do that, your donors will stay connected to you and will keep supporting irrespective of what the tax laws might be.
Excellent.
Yes. And so the next segment or the next part we'll talk about is the doers.
All right.
Yes.
And the doers are.
This is my favorite part. The doers. Yes. Those are the doers, and the doers are like your stakeholders. The doers are, I know stakeholders is a word we use in for-profit, but it's very similar to in this context. The doers are your employees. The doers are your volunteers. The doers are your board of directors.
Yes.
The doers are your local community that supports you. Even the beneficiaries, those are doers too,
Oh,
because
yeah.
some of your beneficiaries bring people to that you can impact, especially when their lives have been impacted.
Yes.
So, this is a very important category, because the work will not be done if we don't have the people, the right people on board. And in this category, I always just advocate for relationship. This is so important. Sometimes when nonprofits help people, they right there, it's good, it's done, and we can post on our statistics and say, hey, we impacted this number of lives. But how do we go back and say, but how they doing, how they faring, what's their success story? Is it something that they might even want to come back and be a part of what we're doing, so we can impact more lives? Just don't shut that door. So I advocate for relationship building. It's so important for you to make sure every category of your stakeholders is connected to you. For example, your employees, you need to have those honest conversations with them. They need to be appreciated. You need to let them know, hey, we might have those changes coming. Let's be honest. Let's see how we can do. What if we don't get as much coming in? Would you still be willing to volunteer time? If this was to change, that we couldn't afford to keep you full time. But that's part of relationship building, is that honest conversation. And then you also have your volunteers. You want to make sure that they know that they are appreciated for all the work that they are doing. I think the doers is one of those areas where it can go either way. You can have a good team of people, but after a while they feel like, maybe, nobody really appreciates what we're doing. And then at the end of the day, you lose out on really good people. So you need to spend time really investing in these relationships, having those honest conversations, reminding them of the results that you're having, showing them that impact is really being made, and they're part of this.
One of the things that might be a real, I think, eye opener is to take the partnerships that you build and have the partnerships honor the volunteers.
Yes.
That may be a real interesting way to get partners instead of
Yes.
them coming in and actually helping the service.
Oh,
They
I
would
love that.
actually help the people who provided the service.
Yes.
And I think that we don't take advantage of that one enough. And I had to throw that one in.
I like
because
that, yes.
I think that a lot of times we really think about the volunteers. We count them. Like we can say we got 96 volunteers, we got 95 volunteers.
Yes.
But if those 95 volunteers all got some way of being honored or recognized throughout the year, I think that would be very helpful. Because to wait to the end of the year when the volunteers actually spend all the time and effort, that immediate gratification sometimes is not met.
Yes.
And I think that's
Yes.
what may drive some volunteers away, because they feel like, well, I did 6 months already, I've done already 3 months, and nobody's ever said anything to me about that.
Yeah, yes.
And I think that's another issue. So, okay, we're
Yes.
good. We're moving
Yes.
right along here.
Yes, we are. We're pretty good on
All
time.
right.
I completely agree with you on that, because when people do not feel appreciated, they seriously just say, I'm done. I want out, because I just want someone to acknowledge what I'm doing. Just say, hey, you know what? Thank you for being a part of this. And when volunteers do not get that, especially because they are doing this out of self-will, out of the bottom of their hearts, when they don't get that appreciation, it really messes things up going forward. Yes.
So now, what are our next one?
The next one. I'm trying to make sure that we're good on time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so these 3 areas that we covered, right? We
Right.
had the dollars,
Right.
we had the donors, and we had the doers. And for anyone who's listening to me, I have 3 questions you should be answering. Every time you think about the changes that are coming. When it comes to the dollars, you should be thinking, what do we have now? And how can we leverage what we have? When it goes to your donors, ask yourself, who are our donors? Who are these people? And the third one, when it comes to your doers, how are you engaging them? Those are the 3 questions. So you have to ask, what do we have in terms of what resources do we have now that we can leverage? Who are our donors? So you can know who you're working with and how you can strategically communicate with them. And the third thing is, how are we engaging our doers? So we keep them engaged, we keep them coming back, and we keep them happy while doing the work to serve our community.
That's outstanding. And I think that, we spent this almost a good half hour talking about those three areas.
Yes.
And I really want people to know how to get in touch with you.
Yes.
Because it's really important that people now have a way of contacting others.
Yes.
That